Alrighty. Good early afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for hopping on to our Summer Lookouts webinar for 2024. I am Michelle Gonzalez. I am one of the program directors with Challenge Tarrant County. We work in drug and alcohol prevention, and I lead the Stay on Track Coalition, where I work very closely with Keller ISD in the North Tarrant area. So a bulk of what we do is educational presentations, awareness events, campaigns that really hone in on educating and spreading awareness on substance use or substance misuse among the community. We share drug trends, we share and administer naloxone trainings for surrounding ISDs and college campuses. And so it is a very great honor of mine to announce that we are hosting our Summer Lookouts 2024 webinar. This was planned and coordinated by our Stay on Track Parent Coalition. So I give all props and all credit to the Parent Coalition, because the Parent Coalition with Keller ISD, if you're a parent right now, you are more than welcome to join if you're interested. I can give all the info in the chat as well if you're interested in joining. And if you're interested, if you're an organization partner and you're interested in joining our overall Stay on Track Coalition, please let me know. I can add y'all to the distribution list as well. And so I want to go ahead and allow our special speaker today to introduce himself and go ahead and start his presentation.
All right, well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you for asking me to do this class today, or this presentation. And thank you to all of you that are watching online. So this is new territory for me. I usually do not do these webinars, but it's the times we live in. And I'm actually working on my office right now at Keller High School, which, if you could see the rest of the office, it is a complete mess. They just got done moving all the furniture out of all the rooms so they could wax the floors. So what you see, I tried to make it to where, let me silence my phone, where you can only, it looks like I'm in control, but my office is total chaos right now. But we will make this work. And with that, because I am in the school, I'm hoping the internet holds up today. Hopefully we don't lose. I was trying to do a backup system, but we were having some issues with the feedback and stuff like that. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So let's see if this is going to work. Guess that's not going to work. All right, Michelle, how am I scrolling through my slides? They're not moving.
Oh no.
I had it there, or we switched over. Sign. So you have control privileges. I'm not on that list.
Control privileges.
Has Melissa and you as slide control privileges. Are you able to scroll through? You just want to hit the next slide if you can.
No. You're a co-host.
Yeah, but I'm not, it's not on slide control. It's not, doesn't have me as listed as having a privilege to move them.
What? Can you try stop sharing really quick? Were you able to stop sharing, or?
Pause, okay.
You might have to, so the PowerPoint that's open presenting already, you might have to click that screen. So try screen sharing again, but choosing the screen that already has the PowerPoint like open.
There we go. All right. Okay. So a little bit about me.
I don't see it, sorry.
You're not seeing it?
Nope.
Well, technical difficulties right away.
Yes, please stand by, attendees.
Screen.
I think somebody raised their hand.
Somebody else probably knows what to do.
Oh, wait, it's moving now.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Yay. Okay.
All right. Back to this. All right. So, just a little bit about me. And you can read through that. I just did finish up my 7th year as the SRO. As an SRO, my last 3 years have been at the Keller High School. The 4 years prior to that, I was at the CTE school for the Keller ISD district, which was also high school students, and I also covered a middle school at that time too. So I'll be going into my 8th school year, and can see that blended family with 6 kids from 19 to 28. So I've had a kid enrolled in Keller ISD continuously from 99 to 2023 when our youngest daughter graduated. So this past school year was our first school year in 23 years. We did not have a child enrolled in public school. So I have a lot of experiences, as you can see. You know, not only am I a parent to kids of different ages, so different generationals or generations that were going through high school. You know, my oldest child, she was in high school back in the early mid 2000s compared to my youngest child who just graduated 2023. So a lot of things have changed in that period of time. A lot of things for y'all that are in the schools you've seen have changed a lot just in the past 2-3 years. And I'm also a police officer, and because I work within the schools, I have a very good understanding of what the schools are, you know, what's put upon the schools, the administrators, the district. And then I also remember being a teenager, you know, even though it was back in the 80s, I still remember a lot of the things um, that we had to deal with back then, you know, where's peer pressure. Now, obviously, this day and age, kids have a lot more things they have to um, endure, you know, with social media and designer drugs and everything else. But I use all those things when I'm dealing with the students about how I make decisions on how to handle different situations. So I'm going to start. So today's presentation, I'm going to cover a whole bunch of different topics. I usually spend any of these one topics I could spend an hour or two talking about. Some of them I could spend an entire day talking about. But I'm just going to touch on a bunch of different things as I go through this. And if you have questions, go ahead and please put a question in there. Michelle will ask it. And you know, if there is something that really piques your interest that you're like, man, I really would like to know more about this. At the end, I have my information on there. We can contact me, and I do presentations on everything from drugs to school safety, to driving, to whatever it is that you're interested in hearing about, I talk about. But today's just gonna be pretty much a summary of all my different classes I give. So we'll start with here in state Texas. A juvenile is somebody who's not yet turned 17. Okay, so Texas state law says you're not considered an adult or you are considered a juvenile up until 16. The day you turn 17, now this is for criminal purposes, I should have said that. For criminal purposes, you're considered an adult the day you turn 17. Whereas everything else in state Texas, you're considered a minor child until you turn 18. There's a lot of parents, there's a lot of students that still do not realize that. I mean, that's been law for a long time. Why it's that way, I don't know, but that's just the way that the law is. And you know, when I get a 17-year-old student who's being charged with a crime, they're being charged as an adult. Whereas if they were 16, they'd be charged as a juvenile. So parents, you really need to make sure you understand that and talk to your kids about this. And the other thing I'm going to say is everything I'm going to talk about today, these need to be multiple conversations with your children. Okay. It's not a one-time deal. Hey, don't do drugs, don't do this, don't do that. You have to constantly be talking to your child about these things because the the peer pressure through social media and society is really pushing these kids to try things that, hey, I remember mom and dad said don't do this, but you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and try it anyway. And that doesn't mean that they're not gonna try it. There's plenty of stories out there where parents have told me, it's like, I've talked to my children about this. I've told them not to do this. You know, we have conversations about these things, and yet they still make these bad choices. So these are things that you really need to constantly talk to your children about. Texas law, we have misdemeanors up to $4,000 and up to a year in county jail, and felonies up to $10,000 in life incarceration. So I'm going to start with juvenile curfew enforcement. So all cities, well, most cities a couple years ago had curfews. Well, recently this law just got enacted, and you can see it passed the Texas Senate 31-0, and it essentially says that cities can't put curfew ordinances in place. And you know, it says here, are an ineffective way to reduce crime and often lead to negative outcomes for youth in school and future interactions with the justice system. I don't necessarily agree with that. Okay, you know, we used to say that anything, if you're out after midnight, nothing good goes on after midnight. But so when it comes to curfews, there are no curfews anymore in state Texas when it comes for juveniles, because this is what the Senate, Texas State Senate has decided, and I personally don't agree with it. You know, being a police officer, working nights, I knew when I came across some juveniles at 2 o'clock in the morning in the park, probably nothing good coming of that. Okay, so juvenile curfews now. Parents, your kids might still think some of the cities you live in that there's a curfew out there. Well, you know, you still do have control of your child. You can say, hey, you got a curfew. You live in my house, you're going to have a curfew. If they are a driver, we're going to talk about driver's license restrictions. So if your child has a driver's license and they are under the age of 18, and you get their driver's license and look on the back, it's going to say they have a G restriction on there. Okay, G restriction from the time they get their license till the day they turn 18, that restriction is going to be on there. And it has 3 things that restriction applies to for your child. Okay, the number of passengers they can have in their vehicle. So if they have a G restriction, they can only have 1 person under the age of 21 in the vehicle with them at any given time, unless they are related to them. So what's that mean? So your 16-year-old son can go pick up his 16-year-old girlfriend, and they can go on a date. Your 16-year-old son cannot go pick up his 16-year-old buddy, go pick up his 16-year-old date, and go pick up another 16-year-old. He can't be driving around with more than 1 person under age of 16 in the car with him. Now, if your son is 16 years of age or your daughter, and you say, hey, I need you to go pick up your 12-year-old sibling from school because they're sick. And then after that, I need you to swing by the daycare and pick up your 6-year-old other sibling because it's time for them to come home. Now, both the people in the car with them are under the age of 21, but they are related to them. They can do that. So you as a parent, you can say, I need you to drive your siblings around, and they can legally do that. Whether it's 2 or 5, as long as they are all safely secured in the vehicle properly. If they're a child, they need to be in a child seat. If they're a baby, in the baby seat, car seat. So with that, this is a really big one, especially at the school. When you have students that are leaving campus to go to another campus, like our CTE school is 5 miles away from home campus. So a lot of times they'll go out and get in their car, and their friends will be like, hey, why don't I just ride with you? And then we have a car of 4, 5, 16-year-olds driving to CTE school when that's against the law. They're not allowed to do that. Have that conversation with your child. They can receive a citation for that. If they get pulled over and that the officer recognizes that everybody in that car is under the age of 21 and the driver is under the age of 18, they can receive a citation for that. The other thing is, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the last slide about curfews, hours of driving. If you have a G restriction, if your child has a G restriction on their driver's license, they are not allowed to be out after midnight. They're not allowed to be driving after midnight, between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. in the morning. Now, the caveat to that is if they are coming back from a school event. So here in Keller, we play Abilene high schools a lot of times during football season, and those kids are not getting back till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So the band gets back at 2 o'clock in the morning, and your 16-year-old daughter or son is in the band, and they're driving home, and they get pulled over, and they explain to the officer, well, I just got back from Abilene because we were at a school event. They cannot give them a ticket for that. They can still give them a ticket for the reason they stopped them, speeding, not coming to complete stop, but they can't give them the citation for being out after midnight. Same with work. Your child works at Whataburger and they decide to pull a shift that goes till 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're driving home, and the officer pulls them over for speeding, and they say, well, I'm coming from Whataburger because that's where I work, and the officer cannot give them a citation for being out after midnight for violation of the restriction on their driver's license. So what I tell students is, if you're working at a job that requires you to work after midnight, I suggest that they get a letter from their employer saying, hey, this person is an employee for us. They do often work after midnight, just so that they can show that officer. And the last thing that goes along with that G restriction on a on a driver's license is electronic devices. If they have a G restriction on their driver's license, they are not allowed to use any type of electronic devices while they are driving. Okay? Because the reason being is they might have their map up or something, but most cars now you can connect it to your screen in your car. But the reason is they're going to be much more tempted to text somebody, respond to a text if they're doing that. So what I tell students is you need to have your cell phone secured in your vehicle, whether in your center console or your glove box, somewhere that is not even going to tempt you to answer it or to look at it. Okay, if they can connect it to where they're putting the map up there, or if it's given verbal driving instructions, that's fine. But it really needs to be out of view to protect them, because 16-year-old drivers are already very distracted and very nervous driving. They don't need this other thing distracting them. Explain to your kids what to do if they have an accident. This past year, I've had so many cars get hit in the parking lots of the high school. And I'll ask the victim, was there a note on your windshield? They're like, no. So now I got to go back and look at cameras for hours trying to figure out who hit this car. Okay. By law, if you hit somebody and they are not there, you're required to leave your telephone number and name on their windscreen, on their windshield. Okay. Make sure your kids know that, okay? Because in this day and age, somebody's going to notice, somebody's going to see them. And if you leave the scene of an accident and it's over $200 damage, you can be arrested for that. And like I said, with cameras and people with cell phones, most of the time, 99% of the time, we find out who it is. Okay? And I have to have that hard conversation with that kid and the parents, like, why didn't you stop? Oh, I didn't think I hit them. Well, you look at the video and you can see the entire car move. Or, well, I didn't think I hit them that bad. I didn't think I did damage. They have to stop. Okay. If they cannot find out who the owner of that vehicle is, if they're at school, tell your kid to go in, find an assistant principal or their SRO and say, hey, I hit a car in the parking lot. What do I need to do? Okay. Make sure they understand that. Property damage. If your child hits a mailbox in the middle of the night or a street sign or something, they need to let somebody know. Okay, we get a lot of mailboxes that are destroyed in the middle of the night because they get hit and nobody notifies the property owner. Okay, if they hit something, they hit a mailbox, a parked vehicle inside the street, in a parking lot, they need to make sure that they are contacting somebody and let them know. if they cannot, if they're like, I have no idea who to contact, then have them just call the police department. We'll come out, we'll get their information. We'll find out who owns the property. Okay, because if we're coming to you after the fact, then there's a good possibility your child's gonna be charged with a crime and possibly arrested. Criminal mischief. I dealt a lot with this in the past couple of years. Kids think it's funny to go out and start messing with their buddy's car. They'll throw cheese on it. They'll throw Chick-fil-A sauce on it. They'll throw cake on it. They'll go to somebody's house in the middle of the night, silly string it. They'll go and throw eggs at it, whatever. Well, what happens Texas heat when you leave something lay on a car sitting out in the sun for an hour or two? Okay, it's going to cause damage to that paint. Okay, and if you cause damage to a vehicle, it's criminal mischief, and it goes by the value. Well, if you silly string somebody's car on Friday evening and they didn't notice it till midday Saturday, and they go out there and they wash it off, and they got all these lines kind of burned into the paint or the clear coat, okay, that costs a lot of money to get a car redone when stuff like that happens. Anything over $2,500, if they take it to a body shop and they tell them it's going to cost $3,500 to fix, your child can actually be charged with a felony at that point. Anything over $2,500 of criminal mischief can be a felony charge. They take out they spray paint, they go out and do graffiti on somebody's fence, and property owner comes back and says, well, it's going to cost me $2,600 to have that cleaned and restained. That's actually a felony charge your child can be charged with. So again, something else you really need to talk to your kids about, because they don't think about this stuff when they're out there messing with each other's vehicles and stuff. Well, then until one of them goes home and dad's like, well, what's going on with your car? Why is it all jacked up like that? Oh, so and so was silly stringed it or whatever. And he goes, well, I own that car and my property's damaged. I want restitution. So talk to your children about that. Driving behaviors. Yeah, we'll go back to driving behaviors. Speed, holy cow. Especially when kids are leaving campus to go to another campus like the CTE school. I listen to our dispatch all day at school, and I'm hearing them call out about vehicle speeding on certain roadways, or calling out dangerous behaviors on the roadways, kids hanging out of the cars as they're going down the street. Talk to your kids about this stuff. We have a lot. The road, like I said, 5 miles from here to our CTE school, there's a straightaway there. And last year, we had 3 students racing back from CTE to high school at an excess of 100 miles an hour. And we were able to locate all 3 of those vehicles by description of the person who called 911. And they all were cited for that. The school was notified. The school pulled their parking passes. Luckily nobody was hurt, but it's only a matter of time when you're doing those type of things. Parking, another huge one. Make sure you talk to your children about, if it says do not park here, or it is a no parking area, a red fire lane, handicap parking. My traffic officers can come to Keller High School any given day and write 10 to 15 tickets for parking violations. Okay. Majority of them are students parking and handicap parking. And when you talk to them, it's like, well, I didn't want to park on the other side of the stadium and have to walk. Or, well, I was late to class, so I just parked there. Okay, well, guess what? Now it's going to cost you $640 because you parked in a handicap spot. That's what it is in City of Keller, $640 for parking in a handicap spot. Okay, that also means the striped areas in between. So talk to your children about illegally parking, not just at schools, but anywhere, whether it's at Kroger, or at the mall, wherever. The other thing is, if if your child is driving your vehicle and you have a handicap placard, that placard is assigned to you, it is actually illegal for them to stick that placard in the window and park in a handicap spot unless they have driven you there. Okay, so we get a lot of these kids that, or you have the handicap designation on your driver's or on your license plate. They will think that they can just park in a handicap spot. If they're not the one that the handicap placard is issued to, or if it's your vehicle and you have the handicap license plate because of the disability you have, your child, that doesn't give them free reign to park wherever they want. So please have that conversation with them. Because the other thing is, a lot of times we run out of handicap parking because it's being taken up by people that are not, that should not be parking there. And speeding and racing, I already talked about that one. So that kind of takes me into this next thing here, November 7th of 2000. All right. That is the last day there wasn't a single fatality on Texas roadways. Almost 24 years that it's been almost 24 years since we have not had a fatality on a Texas road. Okay, I think the closest we got was a couple years ago. There was 2 people killed. So, and we're not talking about 1 or 2. We're talking about multiple people killed daily on Texas roads. That is just an incredible, sad statistic. I think that 24 years we've lost at minimum 2 people in Texas every day from just driving on a roadway. To put that in comparison, the United States military from the beginning of war on terror, or since 9/11, 2001 to 2024, you can see the total military deaths, 7,085. Okay, out of that, 5,477 are the hostile deaths, non-hostile deaths, wounded in action, 53. Okay, so if you take the total deaths plus the wounded in action, a little over 60,000 people, okay, in a essentially 24-year period. 83,000 plus have died on Texas roadways in that same period of time. That again is a very sad, just it's sad to think that we've lost 83,000 people in that same period of time on Texas road. And this is something, you need to talk to your kids about this when we're talking about the speeding, about the driving behaviors. Use this, tell them that we have more people dying on Texas roadways than we have dying in military action in the same period of time. Fake IDs. So if your child wants to have a fake ID or wants to get a fake ID, it's very easy. All you got to do is go online, Google fake IDs, and there's plenty of sites that will pop up. They can put in their name, their address, and whatever date of birth they want on there, their height, their weight. They can put everything there. Send a picture in. For $80, they can have a fake license from any state, and it's they're pretty legit. So and even with the barcodes, when we as officers, I've tried it. I've confiscated plenty of these. When I scan them with a ticket writer, it actually will populate all the correct information in there with the exception of the date of birth. So they're pretty legit. All this, you can get any state you want. So with this, that 25-year-old clerk that's working at the vape shop or working at the liquor store or the Kroger or wherever, and they walk in to buy beer and hand the clerk this fake driver's license, that clerk's not going to know it's fake. You say, okay, yeah, you're of age, and they're going to sell to them. So, I saw a number. I don't know. I can't verify it, but it said that over 80% of college students have fake IDs. They're under age of 21 have fake IDs. So I suggest, grab your kid's wallet and go through it. If they got two IDs in there, one of them's gonna be a fake one, most likely. So again, they're really legit. They're not, like somebody took a picture and cut it out and glued it to somebody else's ID. These are legit looking licenses. So make sure you're checking that out. So this was updated 2019. So these are numbers from 2018. You can see alcohol is still the predominant thing that adolescents are doing. I can pretty much guarantee you all these numbers are a lot higher now because 2020 really just pushed us over the edge on a lot of things. And I think, most of you probably can realize why, because when everybody was not allowed to go out because of COVID and everything else, even, adults, alcoholism went up, tobacco use went up, all these things went up. So these numbers are low. They still apply those, showing that alcohol is still the predominant thing that adolescents are using. We have to be really aware of this because it has become normalized. Oh, well, Officer Tim, I drank when I was in high school, and there's nothing wrong with my kids having no alcohol now and then. Well, then I go back to that 83,000 plus that have been killed in the past 24 years. Okay, majority of those that are killed are alcohol-related accidents. So marijuana, it is slowly, well, actually, it's become normalized. Majority of the country now has some type of legalized marijuana, and it's very, it's kind of nobody really. It doesn't scare anybody or it doesn't scare people as much as it used to because it's been so normalized. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about marijuana here in a bit. I just want you to see that graph. Alcohol is still by far the biggest thing. We deal with parties all summer long here in our city, that underage parties. It's very it's very easy for the kids to get the alcohol, especially with the fake IDs. So you just got to be aware of that. And I'm just going to throw this out too. If you're a parent providing alcohol to somebody, to a minor, somebody under the age of 21, other than your own child, which you can provide alcohol to your child, but if you give it to, so let's say you have Sunday afternoon, you're watching football, your son's there, he's 16, 17, and you give him a beer, and his friend's there who is 16, 17, and you give his friend a beer, you're now violation of law. You can actually be arrested for providing alcohol to a minor. Even if you call up that minor's parents and say, hey, is it okay if I give your son a beer? It's against the law. Do not do it. Vaping. So what is a vape? Okay, devices that are battery operated, that people inhale an aerosol of nicotine and other chemicals into the body. Okay, so here's what they look like. Now, you're like, well, Officer Tim, I never see anything like that. Okay, well, these are first, second, third generation here. Here's what you probably are seeing now a lot of, especially if you work in the schools. And right now, this is the number one thing at the end of school year we are finding. These are like primo. This is everybody's favorite, the Geek Bar. And you can see how they evolve. This Geek Bar actually has a digital display on the front of it telling you how much you're taking in, how much is left in it. They make it fun, make it almost video game-ish. But these things are out of control in the schools. And like I said, they've evolved to the point where when you pulled up behind a car at a stop sign and you saw this big plume coming out, that's not what you're having anymore. These things are very discreet. They're easily concealable on the student's person. They can take a hit off one of these in the back of a classroom when a teacher turns their back and take a hit and go ahead and secure it again. And teachers not going to know the difference. It's not going to be a big plume. They have very little actual visual vapor that comes out of them. They smell sweet, they taste sweet. The nicotine that's used in these is called nicotine salts. So when you talk about cigarettes, that is free-base nicotine in a cigarette. If you've ever smoked a cigarette, you know it kind of burns your throat, it irritates you. It's not pleasant, but after a while, you get addicted to nicotine, you need it, and you get used to the irritation. With the nicotine salts, it's a much lower pH in the product, in the nicotine that's in there, so it doesn't have that burning effect. It's actually very pleasurable to them. They, with the flavor or with the flavors and the smells and the low pH, it's no wonder these kids are so addicted to these things. And the fact that they can use them constantly throughout the school day and not get caught, their addiction is increasing much quicker than anybody that was doing cigarettes back in the day, because they're constantly able to hit this thing. Back in classroom, teacher turns around, I gotta go to the bathroom, in between passing periods. Okay, it's constant with these things. We just find hundreds of these every year, and I don't have the picture in this presentation, and I'm actually going a little deeper into vapes than I wanted to initially on this presentation. But a couple months ago, we received a picture from our streets department here in the city. And it was a picture of a sewer that was overflowing through the manhole cover. They went out there and they cleaned everything out, and they had 2 5-gallon buckets of these devices that they had in the sewer that was clogging the sewer, the city street sewer. Well, the reason they sent it to me was because the lines out of the high school fed directly into that sewer, and that's where they were coming from. They were being flushed down the toilets and clogging up the city sewer system. That's how bad it is. I would say any given day, over half the student population in the school has one of these or multiple of these devices on their person. I don't hesitate to say that at all. And when I talk to children or I talk to students that are using these, I'll ask them, do you think you have an addiction? Most of them will agree with me. They do. They do. So nicotine in state of Texas and pretty much everywhere else now in the United States, you must be 21. Okay. Whether it's you can see the pictures along the bottom there, the vape juice or the old style vapes. These Zins are really big now. The nicotine pouches that they put in their lips, just like they did the Skull Bandits back in the day. Obviously, the vaping devices as talked about, cigarillos, chewing tobacco, good old cigarettes, dip, pipe tobacco. These are all, you must be 21 to possess, purchase, consume, or accept any of these products in state of Texas. And again, most states are now on board with that. They actually made a federal law to up the age to 21. I'm not sure if it's been implemented in every state, but I know here in Texas it is. We do sting operations in our city of businesses that sell these products, where we will send underage students in to purchase this stuff, and we do it in conjunction with the Texas Com Controller's Office, who actually controls the selling of tobacco products. Is a program that we're able to do through them, and we just did one recently, and we issued several citations for businesses selling these products to underage children. Cannabis. So when we talk about cannabis, it is the plant family. And then from there, you can break it down to hemp and marijuana. So cannabis refers to all products derived from the cannabis plant. Okay, it contains about 540 different chemical substances. Within that, you have cannabinoids. And there's over 100 cannabinoids that have been identified at this point, with THC and CBD being the predominant ones. THC is a substance that's primarily responsible for the effects on a person's mental state. That's what makes them high. Okay, that's what people that use marijuana, they want the high THC content marijuana. That's what's going to get them high. Whereas CBD does not cause a high by itself. So back in 2018, they passed the law called the Farm Bill Act, and it said that cannabis with less than 0.3% THC content by dry weight could be considered hemp and sold legally for other products. Hemp contains a high amount of CBD. So that's why you start seeing all these CBD commercials, shops, and all these things about 2018 come around. Hemp has a lot of CBD. So they started extracting it, making all these products. If the cannabis that they're dealing with is more than 0.3% THC content by dry weight, is considered marijuana. So that's how it breaks down. You got cannabis, it's either falls into hemp or into the marijuana category, depending on the THC content. So let's talk about marijuana itself. So when we're talking green leaf marijuana, weed, okay, still illegal in state Texas, class B misdemeanor up, depending on the amount that they have. So when we're talking about green leaf marijuana, and it's still really popular around here, not so much in the schools because of obvious reasons, the smell, and you need to find somewhere to go smoke it. Whereas if I'm hitting a vape, nicotine vape, it's very easy. But we get a lot of this off the street still. A lot of people still like their marijuana, their leaf marijuana. Paraphernalia. You're going through your kid's backpack or through their room, and you see things like this, start questioning, asking them questions. They like to keep their marijuana in the pill containers up there on top. You see a bong, you see wrapping papers, you see the glass pipes, roaches, scales. You see a digital scale in your kid's backpack. What is that for? There in the bottom center, that is a grinder. They put their bud in there and grind it up. For some reason, people still think if you put your marijuana in a mason jar, we won't smell it. That's not true. It still stinks. Ziploc baggies, little Ziploc baggies, especially ones that have cartoon characters on or marijuana leaves. The one there with Scooby-Doo and Shaggy on, you see a tray. They like to conserve, try to save as much of their marijuana, so they'll do it on one of these trays so it doesn't fall on the ground when they're rolling their joints and stuff like that. And then the Swisher Sweets up there, the 2-packs, very common. What they do is they get the 2-packs of the different flavors, grape being probably the number one that I see the most often. They'll cut them open, take some of the tobacco out, and put their marijuana in there and smoke it with the flavored tobacco and marijuana. So just some things to look for when you're going through your kid's room or the car. You get in the car and you see some of these things. If they've been smoking marijuana in the car, you're going to smell it. If you don't know what marijuana smells like, think skunk. That's kind of what it smells like. So that's green leaf marijuana. Now we're going to talk about THC. And I said this earlier. So tetrahydrocannabinol. So THC is the one of the cannabinoids within the marijuana plant. This is what gets you high. Well, what they do is they take marijuana, green leaf marijuana, and they extract the THC from it. So now what you get is these products that are pictured here across the bottom. You get this thick substance that is a concentrate of the THC. So what marijuana was back in the 60s, 70s, even the 80s, you're talking about had a THC content of single digits. 5% THC in marijuana back in the 80s was really good marijuana. We're talking about now with the way they're farming this stuff and doing hybrids and cross-pollinating, your average THC content of green leaf marijuana is 18 to 35%. They take that marijuana and they extract the THC out from it and condense it down. It can get up into the 80, 90% concentration range. Okay. A lot of products I get are in the 70, 80, even up into the 90s. Okay. That is crazy amount. That is like taking one hit of a 80% THC product is going to be like smoking 6 or 7 joints back in the 80s. It's crazy amount of how high or how much THC is in these things now. State Texas is actually is a PG2, okay, which is a state jail state jail felony charge, and that is a user amount. So a lot of these products, a lot of kids are using them in a vaping type device. So they will have these little cartridges. They all refer to them as carts. And that cart can just have a little bit left in there. And if it's enough for us to test and to still have some left over, that's enough for us to prosecute a state jail felony charge. Now, if a student is found with this at school, it actually is a 3rd-degree felony because it's in a drug-free zone. I've had numerous cases over the past couple of years with kids bringing this to school, and it's not as common as nicotine, but it is very common. And this is just from Dr. Drew, and we talk about mental health. Well, we're talking about a product with high concentrations of THC in them now that are causing a lot of these students. You can see 16 to 25-year-olds having all these mental health issues. So if you think about an adolescent, their brains are not fully developed until their late 20s, even into the early 30s now, some doctors or some research suggests. If your 14, 15-year-old child is using a high potency THC product, it is going to have an effect on the way their brains develop. And you can see that there's every day more evidence coming out of how these high strain THC products are leading to more mental health issues within our students. Even somebody in their 30s and 40s uses it enough, it's gonna start causing some issues. I always tell the kids, it's like you only get so many brain cells. Your brain does not regenerate brain cells. You kill brain cells, you're not getting those back. You stop drinking, your body can, after several years, recover from that. You stop smoking, your body can start recovering from that. But if you're affecting things in your brain and you're killing off brain cells, you're not getting those back. And you can see that greater influence than alcohol, opioids, amphetamines, and hallucinogens. Michelle, how are we doing on time?
You are doing great.
Okay. Fentanyl. So when we first started seeing it, now for years, we're talking 10, 15 years, we're always hearing about the opioid crisis, especially up north. I'm from up north originally, so up in Pennsylvania area, Ohio, those places, we're really seeing New York, we're seeing a lot of problems with it. We really weren't seeing a lot of problems with it until about 5, 6 years ago. When we started noticing on the streets, we were finding these tinfoil balls rolled up in people's floorboards on traffic stops. Okay. And what they're doing is they're taking the M30, that blue pill there, was the most common one we would see. And what they do is they smoke it. They put it on a piece of tinfoil, hold a flame under it. As it's melting and burning, the fentanyl is being vaporized into a smoke, and they're inhaling it. The fastest way to get a drug to the brain is through smoking it. So that's what when we first started seeing it here on the streets, that's what we were seeing. These pills are everywhere, and they can be anything. You can see there is the Xanax bars. Um, they can be disguised as anything now. And, it's sad because majority of the students that have lost their lives from fentanyl, they weren't drug addicts. They were just trying something for the first time, or they were just trying something because their friend said it was okay to try. Um, so pills by far in this area are the biggest thing when it comes to fentanyl. Now, back in 2021, September 2021, DEA put out a white letter, a bulletin saying 4 out of every 10 pills that they are confiscating off the street contain lethal dose of fentanyl. That's September 2021. Fast forward to November 2022, though over a year later, they said it was 6 out of every 10 pills. Within a year, it went up that much. Well, a year later, October 2023, they are saying that 7 out of every 10 pills seized by DEA contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. Fentanyl is everywhere. It is, and people are like, well, I've been doing pills for years. Well, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. I've seen, it was popular to not only smoke them, but to crush up the pill and snort it, and also, just popping it and taking it. The thing with taking a pill, a fentanyl pill, is that if they want what they're looking for and they know this pill is going to give to them, if they swallow it, it's delayed before they get that feeling because it has to get in your stomach, has to dissolve, and then spread out to your body. Snorting it's going to get there a lot faster, but like I said, smoking it's the fastest way to get that high, to get that feeling they want from the fentanyl. Psychedelics are really making a comeback. There's a lot of research being done now. I'm retired military, so there's a lot of, there's actually a lot of doctors that are doing research on using psychedelics to treat PTSD, especially in California. I don't agree with it, but there's a lot of that going on. Mushrooms, really common nowadays. There's a lot of mushrooms around. LSD, a lot of acid out there right now. I've seen acid, I've seen PCP. I've only seen mushrooms in the school and LSD. PCP I've only dealt with on the street. My experience as a police officer with these drugs right here is that mushrooms, they're always happy and funny and laughing, and I can talk to them and everything's just like crazy to them. They see the rainbows and the unicorns and all that stuff. PCP, it's going to be a fight. Same with LSD, it's going to be a fight. Every time I've dealt with somebody in PCP or LSD, they're usually undressed because they feel like their bodies are on fire, and they're usually bloodied because they've punched something, hit something, and they're not feeling any pain because of these drugs. So my experience is mushrooms are making them like really goofy, happy, funny, where the other two, it's not pretty. It's just not a pretty sight. Just a little bit about the technology side of stuff. Open web versus deep web versus dark web. Open web, okay, 4% of your stuff you see on the public websites is open web. Okay, that is going to be, you go to walmart.com, that's going to be an open website. Whereas if you log into your Walmart account, you're now into the deep web. Anytime you have to put credentials in to access something, it goes into the deep web side. And then the dark web is the stuff that is pretty much everything is illegal in there. I took a class years ago. It's been probably 7, 8 years ago. And it was on the dark web specifically. And we actually logged into a dark web site through a router, an onion router, and the tours where we were. And you can find anything you want on there. everything from human trafficking to drugs to large quantities, large numbers of credit card numbers with all the information good. So when you hear about like AT&T the other week, when they came out and said all this information had been compromised, well, people get all that information, they put it on the dark web as a large lot. I have a lot of 10,000 credit cards with usernames and this, they put it out there for these bad people to go in and buy. And so you can buy drugs, you can buy weapons, um, uh, people for hire to kill somebody. Um, all that stuff is on the dark web. It's crazy. And again, that was 8 years ago that I did that class, and I just can't imagine what it is now. But all that stuff's out there. So pay attention to what your kids are doing online. With that, sextortion is really big right now. We hear about this pretty much every day. And surprisingly, it's a lot of the young men are getting are victims of this. So what it is they will meet somebody on some type of social media platform, start communicating with them, send them a picture, an inappropriate picture of themselves, or send them something, and then they essentially are blackmailing them saying, well, if you do not pay us $5,000, we're going to send this to everybody in your contact list. Or if you, young women, it's usually they'll get a picture of them. They'll say, well, send us more pictures, or we're going to send this one to everybody in your contact list. So they're essentially blackmailing them for either money, more pictures. It's huge right now. And they think they're talking to somebody on Snapchat or one of the other sites, and before they know it, they're in over their head. We do, and like I said, it's surprisingly young men really get suckered into this. That second article there, Father of a Teen, that I listened to him talk about this. His son, they had his cell phone. His son made contact with these two people in another country at 10 o'clock in the evening, started communicating with them, thinking it was a young woman, sent them a picture. They harassed him so much within a 3-hour period, he committed suicide. So within a 6-hour period, this father tells a story of they can look at his cell phone and see how all this played out. He contacted this person thinking it was this young lady. He's communicated with them for a while, sent something not appropriate. They came back and said, you're gonna provide this to us, or we're gonna do this. And he committed suicide within a 6-hour period. So this wasn't something the father had seen something that was coming. It was just one of those things. So just pay attention. Deep fakes, and I'm going to talk about deep fakes on the next slide, but Surgeon General, this was just recently too. Surgeon General wants a warning label for social media. I want to say Texas, we were trying to pass a law to where if you're under age 13, you can be on any social media. But obviously that got shut down. We're talking about deep fakes. It's gone to the point where they can create this stuff that what used to be slam dunk. We have video of somebody committing a crime, and it is, we know it's them. We show the jury, there's the video. It's just a matter of time for somebody that's their defense is gonna be, that's not me, that's a deep fake. I didn't do that. Somebody created that. The problem is, like this guy says here, it's almost impossible to tell what is real and what's a deep fake because it's so accurate. There's plenty of videos out there on YouTube. Some of the best ones I thought that when I was doing research for this were Tom Cruise, where they deep faked him doing some crazy stuff. Sounds like him, looks like him. So check that out. Last couple things I'm going to talk about is some penal code issues here, starting with terroristic threat. We deal a lot with this with students. Okay, they make a threat and police have to respond to it, or fire department has to respond to it, or somebody feels threatened. They can be charged with terroristic threat. Okay, they post a picture of them holding a gun and says, "See you later," and somebody comes to us and says, "We feel threatened by that," that is terroristic threat. We deal a lot with this. So talk to your kids about this. Starts off as a Class B misdemeanor. Class C is the only thing you can receive a citation for, the lowest level. Everything thereafter is an arrestable offense. So if you're charged with a Class B misdemeanor, it's an arrestable offense. Assault. So we've had issues with this here recently too. If you cause bodily injury, well, what's bodily injury? Well, by definition, it is you cause injury to somebody. I got cut and it hurt. That's bodily injury. Class A misdemeanor, one level below a felony charge. Okay. If you threaten another with imminent bodily injury, that's assault. You cause physical contact with somebody, that's assault. So I get a lot of times where, good example, hasn't been so much here recently, but Orbeez, when they were big, two 16-year-olds decide, we're going to have an Orbeez fight. I'm okay with you shooting me. You're okay with me shooting you? Okay. They go on the woods. They start lighting each other up. One of them goes home. Mom sees the welts all over her baby. She calls the police department and wants to press charges against the other 16-year-old because he assaulted her child, even though they had an agreement it was okay. He's a minor. Mom can ask for an assault charge to be filed. So things you need to talk to your kids about. Then sexual assaults. They tell young men it might be consensual until she gets found out either by her friends or her parents, or y'all break up a week later and she's mad at you and she comes and tells us that she was sexually assaulted. Guess what? You're going to be a suspect in a sexual assault case. The ladies that tell them, when you go to these parties, don't be getting drunk and going and telling your friend to put you in a lock you in a bedroom somewhere or something like that. Pay attention to your drinks. They're putting stuff in their drinks. These things are going on a lot everywhere. So really need to have these conversations. And again, go back to what I said earlier. These are not a one-time conversation. These are a constant conversation, especially for y'all got kids going off to college. You need to have these conversations with them. The other thing I tell the students, the seniors, is like, you are getting ready to, if you're going to school outside of Texas, you better know what the laws are there. Because what's illegal here might not be illegal there. What's illegal there might not be illegal here. The excuse, oh, I'm from Texas, I didn't know that was illegal, or that's legal where I'm from, is not excuse. So make sure they understand what the laws are, where they are. Some great resources. I love these two shows, Trafficked and Drugs Inc. You get a chance, check them out. Trafficked covers everything from drugs to human trafficking to weapons. She does a great job of getting getting in the middle of a lot of these things, and it's amazing what some of the stuff that she's able to film. And then Drugs Inc., they pretty much got an episode for every drug out there right now, and they talk to the drug dealers, they talk to the users, they talk to the producers, they talk to the law enforcement about each individual drug. These are great sources of information to check out. And then this one here, Chronic State. This was put out in about 2018 when Idaho was considering legalizing marijuana. They had this drug-free Idaho organization went out to all these different states that have legalized it and started talking to community members, to addicts, to law enforcement, um, to lawmakers, and asking. And this was after it had been legalized for years in these states, asking what they thought of legalization of marijuana now after the fact. Excuse me. And it is just really eye-opening to hear what places like Colorado and California, when you talk to people that real people, when you talk to the citizens, when you talk to the users, when you talk to the lawmakers, when you talk to the law enforcement, when you talk to the doctors about what legalization of marijuana has done to their state, it is very eye-opening. This is the stuff you don't normally hear. Normally you hear about how great marijuana is and how all these things. This is a great, it's about an hour long documentary, and I highly suggest you check that one out. And just to finish up here, if you're a parent, get involved in your schools, get involved in your students' schools. So I tell parents here at DeKalb High School, give me one day a year. Just come in. I just want you to stand up against a wall and just observe the students, what they're wearing, who they're hanging with, what they're acting like. Listen to their conversations. It would shock some of you what these kids are saying as they walk through the halls. So here in Keller ISD, we have Parents on Patrol and the Watchdog programs. Also have up there Michelle's Parent Coalition. Highly suggest you join that. It's a great organization. They have a lot of information. They help provide these type of webinars. And then Crime Stoppers. We use Crime Stoppers here in the Keller ISD. Make sure your kids know about this stuff. They can actually get money. They put a Crime Stopper tip in completely anonymous. You put a Crime Stopper tip in, you get an 8-digit number, you maintain that number. A week later, you call back, give them that number. They'll say, "Yep, we got $50 for you." Which bank do you want it sent to? I want it sent to Chase. You take that number into Chase, and they'll pull an envelope out with your number on it and hand you cash. Okay, completely anonymous. It's a great program for us. This is how we catch a majority of the kids that are doing vapes and THC. Help a friend. It's same program, except that this is one that if a student knows one of their friends might hurt themselves or they're going through something, they can call this and it gets our counselors involved. I put on a program once a month currently for teen courts. I work with about 4 different teen courts for them to get their court hours. But I would take anybody that wants to do it. I get kids all the time to come just because they want to hear what I have to say. It's a 2-hour course. If you're interested in that, contact me. My information's on there, my email and voicemail. I love doing presentations like this. I do PTA presentations. You get a group of people together, your church, youth pastor wants me to come out and talk to parents, whatever. I love doing that type of stuff. And like I said at the beginning, I can do presentations on, if you just want to hear about vapes, I can fill well over an hour just on vapes. If you want to hear about THC, I can fill well over an hour in that. So any of the things I've talked about today, I pretty much probably already have a program or a presentation created for that. Just please reach out to me. So hopefully everybody got that information there. If not, Michelle will be able to provide it to you. And then with that, as pretty much the down and dirty of my presentation of just touching on a variety of topics. Like I said, usually I concentrate on one topic, but Michelle and I think this is a good idea to go ahead and do it this way because it lets you know what, I'm not trying to scare people, but I just want you all to be aware. These are things that we're dealing with. And as a police officer, I see it daily. In the schools, I see it daily. Your kid might not be involved in any of these things, but you might ask your kids about some of these things. Hey, what do you know about THC? And they look at you like, well, what do you mean? where did you hear THC from? So just conversation starters with your kids, just to talk to them. Michelle?
Yes. Thank you so much, Officer Tim, for giving us that wonderful presentation. I learned so many new things, especially from the first time that you kind of started this presentation draft with us in the Parent Coalition.
Mhm.
I still learned so many new things, and this is just amazing. And I kind of want to open the floor now. We have some time to answer some questions. So, does anybody have any questions or reflections, thoughts, or anything that you would like to mention today for our speaker? I would love if everyone, not mandatory, of course, but I would like if you could take a second to fill out our feedback survey on the event in an overall, how everything went. Give us some ways that we can grow in this platform. I know Zoom in general, we have a lot to learn from. Zoom is a little bit tricky, but we figured it out. I'm very thankful for this presentation. So if you all could take a second to just fill out the survey, you're doing me a big service in doing so. But does anybody have any questions or thoughts or anything that you would like to add before we close today's webinar? Sherry put, if you could please post the first slide regarding legal age.
Okay.
Is it that one?
Is that the one she's looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that age one was definitely something new.
Yeah, it's one that's not, I mean, I'm not sure if there's any other states that are even doing anything like this. Majority of your states are gonna be 18. So especially for people who are moving here from outside Texas, I mean, I get some very shocked parents when they come to school and they tell them that your 17-year-old daughter or son is being charged with a crime as an adult, and they're like, what, they're 17. I'm like, yes, in the state of Texas, they're considered an adult, but they're still considered a minor for everything else. We get a lot of gray area too when a child who is 17 and they want to run away from home. The parents call us and say, well, my kids are runaway. Well, technically they're not. Are they missing? Well, yes. Okay. Do you know where they're at? Well, they're they're at their friend's house. Their mom and dad's let them stay there. Well, then they're not missing either. So there's really nothing we can do. But the downside is that if they go out and get something happens, you are still liable for them until they turn 18. So it's a very gray area from 17 to 18. And a lot of kids, they will push that envelope with their parents. And it's you know, and I feel for the parents because like there's nothing that we as law enforcement can do to, you know, we can't, if your kid was 16, yes, we can go out and take them in custody and essentially bring them back because they're considered a runaway. Even if we know where they're at, they're runaway. They're supposed to be at home, they're not. If they're 17 or older, or between 17 and 18, and they're not missing, they're just not coming home, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you.
That's crazy. Joe said, thank you for all this information, Officer Ulrich. Would love to have this info shared with our students, staff, and parents. Most don't really know all the things that go in the schools, even the good schools.
Yeah, and it's not that, you know, this goes on everywhere. I talk with SROs in several other districts, and they're dealing with the same stuff. I can say Geek Bar, that vape I put up there, and they all know exactly what I'm talking about because that is the popular thing throughout the Metroplex right now. The Geek Bars. You know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was Escobars. I never
Yeah.
even seen Escobar anymore. It's all Geek Bars. And I
Wow.
can talk to other SROs and ask them what they're seeing, and they're gonna have the same thing. So yeah, it doesn't matter what district you're in. It is, and if you look in your communities, um, just pay attention when you're driving around to the number of vape shops or head shops or wherever you want to call them, there are in your communities. You know, 5 years ago, um, we the closest one that I knew of 5 years ago wasn't even our city limits. Now I think we're up to 10 within our city, not including the 7-Elevens and places like that that sell. But so it's yeah, it's not a uh, social economic thing. It's not a regional thing. It's a problem across the United States. I would I would suggest.
Mm-hmm. No,
It
for
definitely
sure.
is here in Metroplex. Definitely in the Metroplex.
Mm-hmm. Sherry said, please share the serious and consequential information with students. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so the nice thing is here at Keller High School, I get at least one day where they'll give me an hour and a half for each grade level, freshman, sophomore, junior, seniors, to talk to them about things like this. Usually on the testing days, because there's testing days where, you know, juniors might have to take a test. So I do get to speak with students every year about this. The PTSAs usually ask me to speak, and this is kind of information I present to them. Like I said, I love getting this information out. I would love to be able to do this more often, but the other side of it is for me to be relevant in what I'm sharing with y'all, I need to be in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And once school starts up, it's hard for me to get out. You know, I have to be here, obviously. But if I wasn't working in the schools, this information would be irrelevant in 6 months because it changes that fast. I am constantly updating my programs and my slides. Michelle has seen several of my presentations, and she can tell you they're constantly evolving and different graphics, different information, because it's just the society, or it's just the times we're living in. This stuff is just, like I said, I can tell you what vape brand was very prevalent 2 years ago, and now never see. And I can tell you what's prevalent now. 6 months from now, Geek Bar might not even be a thing. So,
Yep. Yep. Thank you for that because it is true because when we present too, we're constantly sadly changing the numbers, changing the trends, changing the top substances that are being used or the products that are being used, the way that they're being concealed, and like there's so many constant changes. And so we, as well as you and a lot of organizations alike, they are putting so much work into making sure all information is updated and things like that. And so, yes, we try to keep up with the trends, and the trends do move super fast. They move really fast, but we try to keep up as much as we can. And so we do appreciate when parents tell us, "Oh, we saw this," or when school staff tells us, "Hey, like, did you hear about this?" I love being told that because when I'm told that, I'm like, "No, I did not know that." That's something I can look up and research and possibly add to a presentation.
yeah.
But if anybody else doesn't have any more questions, we received really good feedback. I'm really grateful for you all for coming into our webinar today. If you would like to see more of this, please let me know too, so we can coordinate and possibly get other speakers or anything else we could do. I'm very grateful for just everyone being here today. Officer Tim, do you have any last words you'd like to share for everybody?
No, appreciate you all tuning in today. And again, hopefully you all got my information. If not, please reach out to Michelle. She can provide you my email. If I can work something out within your organization to come speak, I'd be more than happy to do it. This is really my passion, and really the vaping and THC has become my passion over the last couple of years, just because I see it is such a huge issue with the young people. So I'd be more than happy to come speak at your organization if it works out for our schedules. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great rest of their week and their weekend. If you need anything, you can email me if you have any questions or want any other information of opportunities like this in the future. You can let me know as well. Thank you so much.